Surgical Ward No. 7. The Central City Hospital stood like a forgotten relic amidst a skyline of modern high-rises. Despite numerous renovations over the years, certain areas remained sealed off due to budget constraints, or so the staff claimed. But no one ever spoke of the real reason, the one that kept the 7th floor of Building B permanently locked for over 2 decades. My name is Min, a final-year medical student. That summer, I was assigned to this hospital for my surgical rotation. Everything seemed fine at first. Morning classes, afternoon rounds, and study sessions at night. Then I met Nurse Hun, head nurse of the surgical department. A woman in her 30s with a quiet, melancholic air and a voice as soft as fading wind. "One time," she said as we sat in the dimly lit on-call room, "there used to be a surgical ward on the 7th floor. But after a terrible incident, it was shut down for good." I was curious, but she simply smiled and changed the subject. One stormy night, I was scheduled to be on call with her and Dr. Kuang. Heavy rain pounded the windows. The hospital felt unusually still. Around 2 a.m., Hun was called away for an emergency case, leaving me alone in the on-call room. I tried to sleep but couldn't. That's when I heard it, heavy footsteps echoing from the hallway. Probably Dr. Kuang making rounds, I told myself. But the footsteps stopped right outside my door, then fell silent. I opened the door and peeked out. Nothing. The hallway was empty. The fluorescent light flickered overhead, casting warped shadows along the cracked walls. I closed the door, my nerves on edge. Ding. A soft chime echoed down the hall. I stepped back out, heart racing. The elevator, the one that shouldn't have worked, was lit up. The display read, "Going up to floor 7." This was impossible. The 7th floor was sealed. Even the stairway was locked and welded shut. A sudden chill brushed the back of my neck. The display blinked and stopped at 7. But the elevator doors never opened. Then the light went out entirely, as if it had never moved at all. I returned to the on-call room, sleep now impossible. The next morning, I told Nurse Han. She looked at me long and quietly said, "Don't pay attention to the 7th floor." But curiosity is a dangerous thing. I began digging around. The older doctors dodged my questions. Eventually, I snuck into the hospital's dusty archive room. Under layers of dust, I found a faded folder labeled Surgical Ward No. 7, Decommissioned, 2001. Flipping through the brittle pages, I found photographs, surgery records, patient logs, and one peculiar case, live heart surgery. The patient was Trinvan Nam, 26 years old, admitted for advanced heart failure. Records said he volunteered for an experimental live heart transplant. The surgery failed. But here's the catch. There was no death certificate, no report of burial, just one red handwritten line scrawled across the final page. He did not die. That night, I made a decision. I would go to the 7th floor myself. I brought a flashlight, phone, and a small surgical scissor tucked in my coat. The stairwell was blocked by a rusted iron gate, but the lock crumbled with a firm twist. I climbed each step with dread pooling in my stomach. The 7th floor was cloaked in pitch darkness. The air was thick with mildew, old disinfectant, and something that smelled like dried blood. A long corridor stretched out before me, broken windows, tattered curtains stained dark brown. One door was slightly ajar. I stepped inside. It was a surgical room, old-fashioned, with a round light fixture above, an oxidized metal table, and rusty instruments scattered across the floor. Something lay beneath a white sheet on the operating table. I reached out and pulled it off. A human skeleton, still in a patient's gown, lay stiffly on the table, empty eye sockets staring at the ceiling. I stumbled back, horrified. Then, the overhead light snapped on. But I hadn't touched the switch. The door slammed shut behind me. I screamed, pounded the door. Nothing. Then, from the far corner of the room came a whisper. "I'm not dead." I turned in terror. The skeleton was moving. Its bony hand twitched. Dried blood crawled backward from its wrist. My vision blurred. I woke up in the emergency ward. Nurse Han was beside me, her eyes red. "You're lucky," she whispered. "We found you passed out on the rooftop." "The rooftop?" I mumbled. "No, I was on the 7th floor." She gave me a strange look. "This hospital only has 6 floors, Min." I froze. After that, I was suspended from the internship program due to mental instability. But I knew I wasn't crazy. I saw the 7th floor. I heard the voice in that room. Months later, I sneaked back into the hospital to investigate further. But all the records about ward number 7 had vanished. Only one paper remained on the desk, a death certificate. Name, Triton Van Nam. Date of death, July 1st, 2001. One last note in red ink, he has returned. Since then, whenever I pass the hospital, I glance up at the top of Building B. There's a small window, always shut. But once I saw something. A man in a hospital gown, just standing there, watching, unblinking. And I know the 7th floor was never truly closed. The whisper from Hospital No. 9. That night, the rain poured like a flood. Raindrops slammed against the car windows in a rhythm that resembled faint knocking. From the other side, Hai turned off the engine and stared at the towering silhouette ahead. Hospital No. 9, abandoned for nearly 20 years. From afar, it looked like a giant ghost, with shattered windows, tangled vines crawling up its rotting walls, and an air of silent decay. But Hai wasn't here out of curiosity. He was a freelance journalist known for writing about cursed places, and Hospital No. 9 had been the most requested destination by his readers for over a year. Locals called it the White Skull. Legend had it that in the final years before it shut down, a series of mysterious deaths occurred inside. Doctors committed suicide. Nurses vanished. Patients were locked in isolation rooms and left to die, unnoticed for weeks. After a fruitless investigation, the hospital was sealed off. No one dared approach it again. But tonight, Hai would be the first to return, armed with a night vision camera and a deadly sense of curiosity. The main gate was secured with rusted chains, but Hai had come prepared. He circled to the back where a gap in the collapsed wall allowed him to slip in. The moment he entered, the stench hit him. Mold, rot, and something faintly metallic. Blood, perhaps. His flashlight lit up a dark hallway lined with long-abandoned patient rooms, each holding rusted bed frames and stained curtains that fluttered despite the lack of wind. Broken windows allowed gusts of night air to howl through the building like wailing ghosts. Then, another sound. A wheel. A hospital gurney rolling across tile. Hai froze. His heart pounded in his chest. He swung his light toward the left hallway. Nothing. To the right, empty. But the sound was real. It continued, softly, rhythmically, and stopped. Then came a whisper, faint, feminine. "Are you the new doctor?" Hai spun the light toward the voice. No one. But there was a blood trail smeared along the wall beside him. Fingerprints streaked down it, as though someone had desperately tried to claw their way forward. He pulled out his camera and switched to night vision mode. Through the lens, the hallway appeared clearer. And there, standing in midair, was a figure. A patient. Hospital gown torn, hair long and obscuring the face. She stood still, then began to turn. Hai dropped the camera. What he had seen, her face, no longer had eyes, just 2 gaping, bleeding sockets. Her mouth hung open, but made no sound. He spun around to flee and collided with something cold grabbing his shoulder. A nurse. No, a corpse of a nurse. Her head lolled to the side unnaturally, eyes rolled white. Yet she moved. She spoke. "I injected the wrong blood. He killed me. He didn't die. He's still here." Hai broke free and sprinted down the corridor toward the stairs. Every room he passed throbbed with noise. Screaming, scratching, crying children. One door hung open, and on its wall scrawled in blood, "Don't treat him. He's not human." The hallway ended at the psychiatric ward. The isolation room door was thick, lead-lined, with a small feeding slot. Hai's light revealed a bed chained to the floor, mattress torn, restraints still stained with dried blood. In the corner, an open medical file. Patient name Ngovan T. Diagnosis: severe paranoid schizophrenia. Suspected murderer. Final note: unresponsive to medication. Displays traits beyond medical understanding. Eyes glow in the dark. Recommend permanent isolation. No contact permitted. A laugh echoed behind him. He turned. Nothing. But more laughter followed. Then more. Dozens, maybe hundreds, all at once. Manic. Echoing. The walls cracked. His flashlight flickered. Hai collapsed as visions overwhelmed him. An operation performed without anesthesia, doctors sewing a child's mouth shut, blood pouring from ears, patients being dissected alive. In the vision, Hai held the scalpel. "No," he screamed. "I'm not a doctor. I'm just a reporter." Knocking. From behind the wall. Knock. 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 "Come with me. I remember you, that night. You held the knife. You opened my heart." Hai scrambled to his feet and ran down the stairwell. But the hospital had changed. The walls bled. The ceiling dripped black. Lights flickered and gasped. A wheelchair rolled past him, on its own. In the center of the hallway was a gurney, covered in a white sheet. He approached. Hands trembling, he lifted the sheet. It was him, his own face, eyes open wide, mouth frozen in horror. On his forehead, scratched into the skin, the witness. Hai collapsed. The hospital, it wasn't just abandoned. It was a trap, a timeless void where memories, pain, and hidden truths devoured intruders. Every soul lost here still lingered, and now, Hai would join them. The next morning, locals found Hai's car parked by the hospital gates. The engine was off, but the headlights were still on. No trace of him inside. Only his broken camera remained, with one final recording. A whisper. "Are you the new doctor?" The attic of house number 43. The taxi stopped in front of an old, decrepit house tucked away at the end of alley number 43. The dim streetlight barely cast faint patches of light onto the mossy cement ground. Min, a final-year architecture student, dragged his heavy suitcase from the back seat. He had been hired to survey and draft the interior layout of this house, which was scheduled for renovation by a real estate company. Min knocked on the rusty iron gate. The clinking sound echoed ominously in the pitch-black night. No one answered. He took out the key that had been mailed to him earlier, unlocked the gate, and stepped inside. The stench of dampness hit him from the cracked brick tiles. The three-story French colonial-style house loomed silently, its windows tightly shut. A single light bulb above the porch flickered erratically, like the labored breathing of something dying. Inside, Min switched on his phone flashlight. The interior was dark wood, and aged portraits hung everywhere. Dozens of old eyes seemed to watch his every step. There was no electricity. He remembered the company's instructions. You must spend at least one night there. No cameras or high-tech tools are allowed. The bizarre condition had raised red flags, but the generous payment had made him shrug it off. Min cleared a bed on the second floor, rolled out his sleeping bag, and placed his laptop and notebook beside him. He started noting architectural features: arched doorways, carved wood frames, a spiral staircase. Around 11 p.m., just as he was getting sleepy, he heard a knocking sound from the ceiling. He looked up. It came again. 3 knocks, clear and steady. Min stood and pointed his flashlight upward. The attic. According to the floor plan, the attic had no formal staircase. But the sound, it was unmistakably coming from just above him. Determined to investigate, he followed a narrow hallway and found a small, barely visible door, only about 5 feet high, hidden behind a dusty curtain. Behind it was a tight, creaking wooden stairway. The air grew thick and suffocating with the scent of mold and old paint. As Min stepped onto the attic floor, the door behind him slammed shut. He spun around. Locked. Shining his light across the attic, he saw a large framed drawing on the opposite wall, a charcoal portrait of a young woman in a white dress, her head tilted, hair veiling half her face, her one visible eye empty and icy. Beneath the frame it read, Isabelle, 1964. Then he heard a whisper, a girl's voice, soft as breath, but not in Vietnamese. He turned around. No one. The portrait was still on the wall, but the girl's head seemed to have turned slightly toward him. Min wiped his forehead. He wasn't feverish. He didn't believe in ghosts, but this felt too real. The whisper came again, clearer now, in French. Tu es venu me chercher? You've come to find me, haven't you? He stepped back. The portrait was gone. In its place stood a wooden door, where there was none before. Min reached for the handle. It wasn't locked. Behind it was pure darkness. The air was freezing. The coppery scent of blood lingered faintly. Before he could step inside, a pale hand, veined and skeletal, reached out from the void and clutched his wrist. Min screamed. Then, nothing. He woke up on the second floor, his head pounding. It was morning. Everything was back to normal. The attic door was gone. Min tried to convince himself it had been a nightmare, but his sleeve was torn, and on his wrist was a bruise shaped like fingers. Min decided to leave early. He packed up and rushed away from the house. But when he returned to the company, he discovered something chilling. House number 43 had been abandoned since 1971 after an unsolved murder. A young French woman named Isabelle, who had lived there, was found hanging in the attic. Her face had been skinned and scratched into the wall. Using her own fingernails were the words, Je suis encore ici. I am still here. Since then, anyone who entered the house reported the same hallucinations, the portrait of the girl, the knocks at midnight, and a cold hand grasping their wrist. but no one had ever lived to tell the story beyond 3 days. Min opened his notebook. On the last page, written in red ink, something he didn't recall writing, were the words, "The door is still open. I never left." And from that night on, Min heard knocking. 3 knocks. From the ceiling of his own apartment. Ward number 9. Provincial Hospital C, once a symbol of regional medical pride, had officially closed its doors in 2006, following a string of medical accidents, patient disappearances, and disturbing rumors that were never officially confirmed. But among former staff members, everyone knew the most unsettling stories came from Ward number 9, a floor that had been sealed off since 1998. No patients were ever brought there again, and no one dared step onto that floor after sunset. My name is Fook. I'm a freelance videographer who specializes in urban exploration and abandoned places. I first heard about Ward 9 during a drinking session with retired doctors, where one of them spoke up with a hoarse voice. He said the ward was used for special patients suffering from extreme mental disorders. It wasn't a psychiatric unit. It was a place to confine things humans couldn't control, he muttered, staring into his rice wine. I decided to film an episode of White Hell Inside the Abandoned featuring Hospital C, with the climax being our infiltration of Ward 9. My crew included 3 members, myself, Duck, and Tam, host. We managed to bribe an elderly night guard who gave us the key and a warning. Don't go in there at night. I'm serious. And if you see a door with red ceiling tape, don't open it. Ward 9 was located on the 5th floor, its hallway stretching endlessly in the dim light. Each side was lined with iron hospital doors sealed long ago. The air was thick with the scent of disinfectant mixed with mildew, creating a suffocating cold atmosphere. The walls were peeling, and strange childlike scribbles marred the surface. Some windows were broken, letting in gusts of wind that howled like moans. Tam started recording. Duck powered the lights. I led the way with my boom mic and a dusty floor plan the guard had given us. On the map, the last room down the hall had a handwritten note in shaky letters. Dark surgery room, like it had been scrawled with the left hand of someone in a hurry. We reached that room. The red ceiling tape had long since torn. Inside, the room was pitch black. The walls were covered in x-rays, but not normal ones. Some skulls had a third eye. Others showed spine-like vines wrapped around organs. At the center stood a rusted operating table, and on it a torn cloth doll with its mouth sewn shut using hypodermic needles. Suddenly, Tam froze. Her eyes widened. Sweat poured from her face. As I approached, she collapsed, letting out a sound I can't describe. It wasn't human. It was a low, guttural noise, like something echoing from the back of a cave. Duck ran over. "Damn it! The light's not off." "But it's off!" The camera light was on, yet the footage was black, total blackness. We dragged Tam out. When the light returned, she didn't remember a thing, but kept whispering the same sentence in a strange, shrill voice. "Don't open its eye. Don't open its eye." Panic crept in. We decided to leave. But as we ran toward the stairs, the hallway grew longer. No matter how far we went, the exit never came. Room number 9 repeated 3 times, even though we'd clearly passed it. I stopped, breathless. On the wall before us, there was a fresh sentence written in blood. "Its eye is open. You have no way out." Tam started giggling, childlike, playful. Then she shrieked, "I see it! Fook! It's right behind you!" I turned around. No one was there, but a shadow was stretching toward me, not mine. It was taller, emaciated, with arms that dangled to the floor and a head that slumped unnaturally sideways, like the neck had snapped. Then the light went out. I don't remember what happened next. When I woke up, I was lying on the hospital grounds. Around me were guards and police officers. Tam was missing. Duke had gone insane. He's now being treated at a remote psychiatric center. They say he hasn't spoken since, only drawing the same image over and over again. An eye, wide open and bleeding, cradled between 2 upside-down palms. As for me, I still have the handheld camera from that night. The footage is corrupted, silent. But at the 57th second, if you slow it down, there's one frame that flickers behind me. A face, gender unknown. Just one eye, round and black as coal, staring directly into the lens. And now, every night at exactly 9 p.m., I hear a knock at my apartment door. Only once, but there's never anyone outside.